Hi, my name is Megan. I am an animal informatics student at Indiana University. I have just reached the end of my first semester in the program, and my final assignment for my seminar course in ACI is to provide my thoughts on the technologies and approaches, methodologies, everything that we looked at in the course. So I thought the best way to do that would just be to do a tier list. So I have about 40 technologies that we looked at in the course, and I'm going to go through them and rank them. These are like my personal rankings. I just want to make that really clear. I think it'll be really funny to look back when I finish the program. It's a 2-year program. I feel like at the end of it, I'm going to look back at this and be like, oh gosh, what was I thinking? But as of right now, this is like where my mind is on these different technologies. They're the ones that interest me. So like I might put some in like D or F. I don't think they're bad. I'm just not personally interested, or I kind of like maybe don't get it as much as I get the other technologies. So first one here, Bat Echolocation Classifier. This is a program that can basically use AI vision to identify bat calls. I think that's super cool. I really like using AI for this kind of stuff. I'm going to put it in A tier. Shrimp speedometer. This is the mantis shrimp. This is a device that was created to measure the speed of the shrimp's punch. This is like a study from, I want to say like the late, like right before the 2010s, I want to say, back when the mantis shrimp was like, had his moment. So I feel like this like kicked that off, pun intended. Really cool technology, measures how quickly the shrimp kicks. I really like it. I'm not personally super interested in this sort of like I don't know, like biological measurement. Like it's cool, but it's not like the most exciting thing to me. I guess I'm gonna put it in B. It is pretty cool though. Maybe it should go in A. I'll just put it in B for now because I feel like we're gonna end up with a lot of stuff in S and A. Opossum Joey Smart Habitat. This is a smart habitat for orphaned opossum joeys that they can be raised in with minimal contact by humans, so they can then be released into the wild. I think that's super cool. I like any technology that saves the lives of animals, especially wild animals that can go back to living their normal lives out in the wild. I think there's like some issues with the maintenance of this. Like it's probably not something a lot of organizations would be able to like afford and keep working over the years, but I really like the idea. It's designed like specifically for how opossum joeys behave, so I like that, but not the most exciting thing to me personally. Chick VR room. So this is Dr. Samantha Wood's research. I believe also Dr. Justin Woods is involved in this. This is research that's being done at IU, so we stand this research. The research is super cool. Essentially, they rear baby chicks in a KVR system, and that way they can control everything that they see, and they can try to understand more about how these chicks are seeing. But there's also an AI component to it where they're building artificial intelligence models based on like how these baby chicks are able to visually understand the world. So I think that's super cool. I feel a little like weird about raising little baby animals in cave-like VR systems. I wouldn't want to be that chick, I guess, but I don't really know how much of an effect it has on them. I think this is really cool research. I'm going to put it in A tier. I might also move that to S later. AI dog body position reader. So this was research that was done to use computer vision to watch dogs in kennels and try to understand like the position of the dog's body, and then we can try to interpret what it means. I love this. This is exactly the kind of thing I'm interested in. Like we unfortunately just don't have the resources in shelters and kennel environments to spend as much time with the animals as we should. So if we can use AI vision to monitor them and kind of understand them better and have earlier interventions with them if we see issues, I think that's really great. I like that. Adoptable animal matching systems. I used to be really into these. I used to think like, I worked at the adoptions desk at a shelter, so I was like really into like, oh, we got to make matches, right? Like, oh, what if we could have Tinder for pets, and we could have, you know, people fill out a survey and we match them with the dog. But what this study and what I found as an adoptions counselor is people don't really make rational choices. So I think the matching system is like, it's interesting, but I'm much less excited about it because I don't think people are making rational decisions about how they choose a pet for adoption. So I think the matching systems just don't really do much, but I appreciate the research here kind of showing that and exploring like what's going on here. People are not taking home the animals they're saying that they want. It's like, it seems like such a great fun idea. Let's make Tinder to match people with their pets, but it just doesn't work that way. Shelter adoption data analysis. This was a student project. They looked at shelter data to understand what data points about animals could predict their outcomes, like whether they got adopted or not. Very cool. I think every shelter should do this. I think like any shelter that's not looking at the attributes of their animals and the outcomes in this way is really missing out on a ton of information, a ton of like learning opportunity, but not, I guess to me, it's not as exciting just because I think everybody should already be doing it. So I'm going to put it in B. It's like it's like an average, like, yes, we should all be doing that. Spy in the Wild, this is a TV program that creates animal spies, like robots that sort of look like and mimic animal species, and then they set them out where those species in the wild can interact with them. I don't love it, honestly. Like, it's cool to see the robots. In this particular thumbnail, we're looking at some sort of monkey. I can't remember what kind. They made a baby robot of their species, and the monkeys, like, at some point started messing with it and it fell over and they thought it had died. I think that's really sad. This to me is just like, it's cool, it's entertaining, but I'm not sure it's like maybe helping the public understand or like care about or just know about animals a little bit more, but it's not doing much for the animals, I don't think. So to me, it's not the most exciting. Varan Pet Robot is fine. I'll put it in D. It's fine. It's a little pet robot. You can leave it at home. It runs around your house like a Roomba that doesn't clean, and your pet can chase it. He drops treats. I like it. It's good. Keeps our pets entertained when we're not home. But again, I think it's kind of like, okay, yeah, like these are cool. We've seen them. Paro Robotic Seal. I stan Paro Robotic Seal. Love him. This is a robotic seal, like a social robot. It's typically used in nursing homes or like with kids. He's really cute and I like him. Want to put him in S, but he is a closed system. So like you buy him from the manufacturer and everything, like whatever data processing is happening, however the sensors in Paro are getting used, like you just don't know what it is. And I wish it was more open. So I'm going to put it in A instead of S. Robot pointer. So this was a study in which you can kind of see the little robot here. A little robot would point, and the researchers were trying to understand, like, can the dog make sense of that? So if a human points and says, like, if you put like 2 buckets on the ground and you put a treat in one and then you bring a dog in and the human points at the bucket with the treat, like the dog will go look at that one. But does it work also if it's a robot instead of a human? And the answer is like, yeah, it does. Not as much, but it does. I think that's really interesting. I like the idea of like figuring out like how a dog thinks, how it focuses his attention. Anything really that has to do with like attention and focusing attention is really interesting to me. So understanding like how a dog gets a cue from someone about where to put their attention, I think is really interesting. And the fact that a robot can like manage a dog's attention in that way is super interesting. And there's a lot of potential there for the future. So I'm going to put that. I'm tempted to put it in A, but I'm going to put it in B. The cattle herding robot, I hate it. Like, I get it. I want to like it. It's just a robot that, I mean, it's not just a robot. It's like a complex machine, but it's a robot that corrals cows. So if you are moving cows from one pen to another, or like from slaughterhouse area 1 to slaughterhouse front door, like you can have this robot like waves flags around and kind of like scares the cows forward. I just don't I don't eat animals. I don't want to think about cattle hanging out outside the slaughterhouse and how we move them around. I wish they weren't there. I think it's really sad. I appreciate that the cattle herding robot is probably safer for the human workers who also were like, I think the cattle are exploited, but a lot of the human workers in the animal agriculture industry also are exploited. So I appreciate that it's safer for people. It's probably safer for the cows too, but it's just kind of it's just not my favorite. I wish we didn't need them. Maybe that's not the fault of the cattle herding robot, but I don't want to look at it. The spout dick poultry robot is the same thing. I actually think I hate this one more. I think this one, and there's another chicken robot in here that I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'll get to it, I guess. Yeah, same. These chickens are living terrible lives inside these awful warehouses, and this robot is going through. I think this is the one that scares egg-laying hens from the ground up onto their perches, so that when they lay eggs, they get laid in the systems for collecting rather than on the floor. Which it's like, great, we're being more efficient. I don't want to be. I shudder to imagine being a hen living in this condition. And again, like, I appreciate that it's probably more safe for a robot to do this than a human, but it just makes me sad to think about this context. I don't like it. Okay, dolphin voice localizer. This is solid S tier. This is super cool. So this is a technology that uses hydrophones and a camera and can pinpoint like the speaker when video recording dolphins. So you can see in the thumbnail there's like 3 dolphins. When you're hearing dolphins make noise underwater, it's like impossible as a human to understand which of the dolphins is making the noise because it's underwater. We're not good at hearing underwater. It just sounds like it's coming from everywhere. So the voice localizer can pinpoint which of the dolphins is making the noise. So it's like telling us who's speaking, which is going to allow is going to allow researchers to really understand more about dolphins and like how they communicate. Like, do they take turns? Do they like what's going on here? So I love this. That's the kind of thing that just gets me really excited to be able to understand like how animals are already talking to each other or working together or even interacting with us. So I love that. This is solid S tier for me. Also, the Uma Mimi Robo Horse Ears. This one was really interesting. So this is a doctoral student, I think he graduated, who since then created these robotic ears that mimic like how a horse ears move, and he can move his head to make him move in different directions. And I think it's kind of similar to the voice localizer. Like, it's getting us like a step closer to being able to kind of explore like how, like, what are the horse's ears doing, like what's the meaning behind it, and can we replicate it, and can we like even just show a horse that like we can do it too. I think is really interesting. I really liked seeing this in class because I feel like a lot of each week we write about what we're looking at, what we're watching, what we're reading, and I feel like a lot of other students like thought this was weird. They kind of were like, there's like an ooh-woo factor, I think, to like the video that presents this technology, and a lot of people kind of responded to that and were like, oh, I don't get it, like it's like got catgirl vibes or something. But I love this. To me, this is someone who is really passionate about like connecting with animals and looking for ways for technology to help like strengthen that connection. And I just think that's amazing. I think that's awesome. I think if you're like a horse person and you can like get that much closer to having a connection with your horse, like that's really cool. That's the kind of stuff I want to like see more of, is that relationship building. And I'd be really curious to see like a next step here where it's like, let's try to actually figure out like what the movements mean and then see if like replicating them does anything. But yeah, I love this one. Connecting with I can't say the word orangutan. I know you don't say it orangutan, you say it orangutan. I cannot pronounce it correctly. But I love this one. So researchers, along with Microsoft researchers, ACI researchers and Microsoft researchers created these Connect interfaces for the apes. And you can kind of see here, there's this like red light, and the orang in this thumbnail is like putting their face right in the red light, and when they touch the lights and stuff, the Connect like measures that and makes them explode or makes them have movements or things like that. And I really like this one because I appreciate that it uses this like projection technology so that the animals are interacting with their existing environment. I think that's interesting and new. I love that. And then also like they didn't use food rewards. So it was like, let's just see what's interesting to orangutans. Let's just try different games and like see which ones interest them. And I heard that the orangs kind of like lost interest in this over time. I don't know if that's true or not, but if so, it just seems like, well, let's just make different games. Like, let's see if there's like other things. Like, let's make hundreds and hundreds of different ways for this to work and see if any of them are interesting to the apes. So I really like that one. Rhino Foobler is cool. I'm tempted to put it in S tier, but I'm not personally so interested in like zoo animal enrichment. I guess, I mean, I am interested in it. Um, I think the Rhino Foobler is an amazing, I mean, everybody knows it's an amazing example of enrichment, especially like tech enabled enrichment. The way it works is super cool. It really helps me. Like, I'm new to this world, which is funny. I'm like sitting here rating all of it and I have no idea what I'm talking about. But like the way it works kind of introduces the viewer of it to like how training and interaction works between animals and technology. There's like a lot of design decisions here around like how are we going to make it novel for the rhinos? How are we going to let them know it's time to play with it? How are we going to give them choice, control? I feel like it's such a good like learning opportunity to study how this was made and why it works and the effects it has on the rhinos. Okay, maybe I'm convincing myself to put it in S tier, but I feel like S tier is going to get really crowded. I'm going to put it in A tier. Again, just because for me, like, I, the, like, oh, we have animals at the zoo who are really bored. Let's give them something to do. Like, yes, we should do that. Um, that's not necessarily like where my personal interest is. The chimp cognition touchscreens. This is this is a tough one to rank because there's kind of a lot going on here, and I'm very lucky because this particular thumbnail is from a technology used at the Indianapolis Zoo, and the person who made it, Dr. Chris Martin, who again we stand here at IU, is an IU faculty member. So we're really lucky to have this technology. Like this technology is like close to us, and I actually did get to go to the Indianapolis Zoo and see chimpanzees play with these touch screens and like do their activities and kind of demonstrate some of their cognitive skills. It's really cool, and it's cool in a lot of ways because it's giving the chimpanzees something to do. Like I showed up to the demonstration early and like you could tell like the chimpanzees were getting excited. Like they knew it was time. They're like, okay, let us in. We're going to do our computer stuff. And they were so engaged with it. And it's cool to see what they can do and how they do it. But it was also cool to see other visitors like be impressed. I think I like people are watching chimpanzees like do something. It's like we're doing this on our phones all day long. We're like doing the same thing. We're just like pressing buttons, just like getting that dopamine hit. So I feel like it helps you like connect with and kind of understand like the similarities that we have with chimpanzees. Along the same lines, we read a paper about a food preference touchscreen for chimpanzees. I think this is cool. I'm gonna put it I'm gonna put it in B. I think it's cool. I like anything that gives animals choices. So it's like we're asking these chimpanzees, "What do you want?" And I really like that. That concept for me is like S tier. But I'm not like okay, low key. I'm not like a primate person. I appreciate primates. I really love all animals. I'm a cat person, actually. I think primates are really cool, but I feel like, especially being in an animal centric program, like you are in classes with people who it's like they live for primates, like they're obsessed with primates. And I think that's awesome. I'm like borderline obsessed with cats, but I'm not obsessed with primates. So I think it's cool and interesting, but it lacks that sort of like I don't know why I'm so obsessed with cats, but there's like a magic, there's like a sparkle to it that attracts me, and the world of primates doesn't have that for me as much. So the asking animals like what they want, I love the sort of touchscreen aspect of it, where it's like we're having apes like learn to use the touchscreen to do that is cool. I actually think I should have put on here there's a similar thing except it's dolphins and they use echolocation. Like they blast a sensor wall with their echolocation or their like sonar basically to make choices. So it's like a touch screen, but they're touching with their sound wave. Like it's the same kind of thing as this, but I really like to me that would be like A or S tier because we're using this really unique ability of the dolphins, and I guess we're using the unique ability of chimps here as well, but we also can use touch screens. So that's why it doesn't like raise up to the S tier, I guess, for me. Rat operated vehicles, I'm just gonna put it in S tier. It's so cool. There's some aspect of the context I don't like. So I talked about like I don't like the contexts of like, oh, we're leaving our pets home all day long and they're bored. Let's give them something to do. And I don't like the context of like, hey, we're eating these animals and we need to move them around and get them to do stuff. Let's use robots to scare them into it. Like I don't like those contexts so much. I really dislike the farming context. Although again, I understand like if you can make a kinder world for those animals who are making a huge improvement in their lives. Um, the rat operated vehicle, like these are potentially lab rats, and it's like we're experimenting on them, and so we need to like give them something to do when they're not being tested. So I don't love that context, but I really love just the concept, the idea. Like I know rats, like you can tickle them and they laugh, and the idea that they also can get in little cars and that they want to, and that you can give them a choice between just walking like to get a Fruit Loop versus getting in the little car and driving to get the Fruit Loop, and they choose to drive. I assume because it's fun and they like it. Like I just love that. So the like play aspect of it, I guess, is what's really interesting to me here. Like I love like we're giving like rats are playful and they laugh, and here is a way for them to play that they seem to really enjoy. So I love that, and it's just also super cute. Like I can't not put a little Pope mobile with a rat inside of it on the S tier. Um, Elephant anti-poaching drones, yes, S tier all the way. This is, I think, one of the coolest uses of technology. And it's not super complicated, right? It's like let's fly drones over elephant herds and make sure there are no people around them trying to shoot them and kill them. But I think it's great. It's like it exists for the welfare of the animals. It's not because we want something out of them. Like we do want something out of them, which is we enjoy their existence. We enjoy that they are still on the planet when they've become when it's become so hard for them to be. So we get something out of it, but it's like this technology is being used to help them so that their lives are better, and the focus is more on them and helping them, and I really like that. Wild Sense deer trackers, this is super cool. We'd be tempted to put it in S tier, but I'm going to put it in Oh, I'm tempted to put it in C. I'm going to put it in B. So the Wild Sense deer trackers, this was a cool system. Everybody knows like the GPS collar you can put on an animal and use GPS to see where they went. Wild Sense uses a social network essentially. So they actually these trackers, when they're in proximity with each other, they note that and they go, oh, deer A is near deer B, and they share data with each other. So if something happens to deer B and that tracker, disappears, all of deer B's data is actually on deer A's collar. But I like the idea that we're looking at not just like how many deer are there, but like how do they interact with each other? Like, do they have friends? Do they hang out with the same people? I really like that. However, I'm bumping it down because in order to put these trackers on the deer, they literally caught them in nets and helicoptered them to like a second location, and it just seems really traumatic, and I now have that image in my head for the rest of my life. Infrared camera traps, yes, cool. I'll put it, I'll put it in A tier. Great. I think we should definitely use infrared camera traps to like understand animals. Where do they go? How many of them are there? I love all of that. It's maybe not like S tier. It's kind of like the shelter adoption data analysis. Like it's cool that I like it, but like we should be doing it, and a lot of places already are, and that's awesome. But I like the really new novel stuff. I like the stuff you don't see anywhere else, right? Like the horse ears, the connecting with orangutans, the rat operated vehicle. I'm the sort of like more playful things that you haven't seen before, to me, are S tier. ACI wearability design tool. It's probably better called a design framework. Team of ACI practitioners and researchers made like a design framework for people to use when designing wearables for animals. I like that. I'm a designer. I love frameworks. Like, love it. I'm gonna put it in B though. It is the kind of thing that I think would be really cool to make. I'm very interested in it, but we also have rats driving cars in S tier. So which is higher? It's the rats driving a car. B Corp Hive sensor. This is really cool. This technology also is like close to IU, was created by a former IU student. I think she actually may have been a student when she created it. It's really cool. I love data. I love like monitoring. I love like understand like just gathering data with sensors that are like non-invasive to keep track and understand how animals are doing. It is in the service of bee farming, which again, like not the most exciting to me. Like any of the farming applications are going to be less exciting. Although watch in like 2 years, I'm going to come back and be like, oh my gosh, what was I saying? Like these animals need this stuff the most, and I was totally blind to it. That very well could be where I am in the future. But for right now, like just being new to everything, that's not the thing that stands out to me. Okay. Oh, the fluent pet buttons, solid F. Sorry. Sorry. I know these are really popular. I'm just really not sure about these. These are buttons that like dogs can press, and this is a famous dog, Bunny, who you see all over TikTok. Who the people who like the guardians of Bunny will make TikToks, and I've seen some of them that are like, "Oh, Bunny told us today that she had a thorn in her paw or whatever," and I'm not sold on that, and I have a lot of questions about like how these are really working and like what does the dog think these are doing? Like what's the dog's concept of this? I think it's very unlikely that they are actually using language. And there's almost this element of like sadness to it to me where it's like Bunny, like why are we making these animals like speak our language? Like why don't we learn some of theirs, right? Like dogs have body language and we can learn it and we can get better and better every day at like understanding it. Dogs already tell us things and you just have to listen. So there's an element where it's like, I have a concern that these buttons, it's like we're asking animals to be us. And instead we should appreciate them for who they are. And we should extend like we should put effort into being more like them, I guess. Like I think we constantly ask things of our pets, and we want them to be like us, and we want them to do what we want them to do, and it's like we could be a little bit more reciprocal. And I think learn your dog's body language. If you want to get pet buttons, sure, great, but like at least learn their body language in addition to that. Service dog prediction toys. Love these. I'm obsessed. S tier. So these are toys, instrumented dog toys. They were used in a study down at Georgia Tech to predict whether dogs would fail out of service dog training school. And they actually did predict with 87.5% accuracy whether a dog would pass or fail service dog training school. The context is not so interesting to me. Like service dogs are cool. I love dogs. You probably, the theme here is like when animals are tools. I'm not so interested in like making them better tools. But I think there's so much potential here. Like this is a toy, like if this really works, if you really can learn something about a dog's temperament or personality or like abilities through toys, that seems like a huge, huge opportunity in the future for everybody to just be able to get way more information and understanding about the dogs that they have in their homes, their shelters, everywhere. Companion Viz dog fitness tracker. This is another one where it's like cool data. I mean, this is another one from IU. I love a dashboard. I love some data. The goal of the Companion Viz was for pet owners to kind of understand like the activity levels of their dogs, and I really like that. I think a lot of like how dogs live and how they are is right in front of our faces, but we don't always see it. And so for some people, I think this like data visualization of it could potentially give some aha moments, and I love that. Equine therapy progress tools. So this was a paper kind of exploring like what kind of technologies might exist for equine therapy, what opportunities are there, and the researchers found that like one of the biggest opportunities was just to chart the progress of the participant in the equine therapy. I'm going to put this in C tier. I think it's really cool. This is the kind of study, like this approach of like, we're going to go do essentially a contextual inquiry into some context. I love that. To me, that like approach is S tier, but the focus on this one is more about like, tracking the progress of the human participant and then being able to justify the cost of equine therapy. So not as interesting to me. Ooh, appearance by my cat, Babones. Haha. Okay, sorry, bye. um, uh, Barks and Rec app. This is super cool. My background is in app design, so I love a good app. I'm gonna put it in B. I think this is cool. The concept here is for pet owners at dog parks to be able to like help achieve their goals with their dogs. So if they're trying to socialize their dog, like be able to take their dog to the dog park when other highly social dogs are there. So I like that a lot. Orangutan, I still can't say that name, drone delivery system. This is kind of an exploratory like idea paper about using drones to deliver food like high up on perches in zoos so that orangutans who naturally live in the trees, but in zoos a lot of times stay on the ground, can be more natural in like using their climbing abilities. So kind of like enticing the orangutans up into the trees so that they can achieve species competence, essentially. So species competence as a concept, S tier, love that. Yes, let's help animals, do what they do, be good at what they're doing. If we have apes who typically live in trees, but they're spending all their time on the ground, like let's help them. Maybe they would be happier in the trees, but maybe there's a barrier to them understanding that or getting to, feel confident in it. So I love that idea. The concept of the technology itself, drones, is cool, but I think like concept of species competence, S tier, delivery system, it's cool. I think it would be neat. Not as like maybe novel as some of these other things. Okay, cat music. I love cat music. I just said like, oh, anything novel, like anything in S tier has to be super novel, and maybe cat music is not. I don't really know. But I just love this concept. Somebody created music for cats. So they thought about like not what kind of human music would cats like, but like what are the tenets of music, like rhythm and repetition, but then what are sounds that cats like? And then how do we make music that is like sounds cats would respond well to in a sort of musical presentation. I just like the thinking on that. Like if aliens came to Earth and they were like, hey guys, do you want to hear our music? I'd be like, I mean, I'll listen to it a little bit, but like after a few minutes, I'm probably out, right? Like it's probably going to sound like nothing to me or like something I don't want to listen to. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe I would be pleasantly surprised. I would be open. I would listen to it a little bit. But I find it hard to believe that like aliens would come in and be like, oh, you got to hear our music. And I would be like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. Like, so when we always want animals to listen to human music, I feel like it's the same kind of thing. We're like, hey, cat, you're going to love this. It's called human music. And they're just like, what is this? So yeah, cat music is awesome. Sway feeding poles, yes, S tier. This is a paper by John Coe. We love John Coe. Going over some ideas for naturalistic enrichment, so helping species in zoos to achieve species competence. Again, concept of species competence, yes, love it, S tier. But what I also like about this is there's like a checklist on how to think about what you're creating for enrichment and to help animals in zoos achieve species competence. And I also just appreciate in some ways like the simplicity of like some of these solutions are like they're genius, but they're genius in their simplicity. Like this sway pole, it's feeding a big cat by putting the food high up in a swaying tree. It's like the kind of thing that if you're designing a zoo exhibit, like, and you've been designing them the same way everyone's been doing it since the 50s, like you're thinking about like security. You're like, we got to make the most secure branch. We got to make a branch that looks cool when the animal's sitting on it. But it's like, no, in the wild, like most branches, most trees are like wobbly. So why do we have all these really secure things in the enclosure? So there's like a simplicity to that. And I really appreciate that because I think sometimes like we can overcomplicate things. Another example, for one of my classes, I had to write a paper about a species. I wrote about the cow-nosed ray. They're awesome, by the way. And then I went to the zoo to go see some. They had some in a touch pool and they had some in a big aquarium. And neither of those things had sand in it. And cow-nosed rays they forage for bivalves on the seafloor. Like they are constantly touching sand when they're eating. And one of the things I have to do in that class is I wrote about cow-nose ray. For the end of the semester, I have to say like what I would do to create a technology for enrichment for them in a zoo setting. And it's like I kind of want to just write like give them sand, like just give them sand. Um, they like sand. They understand sand. They eat in sand. Like the sand is their natural habitat, and then we don't have any in these zoo environments. In the ones that I looked at. So there's an element to this John Coe paper that's kind of like, hey man, just like, give them some sand, right? Like that's the table stakes. And then what else is going to help them feel at home and achieve what their natural behaviors are? So I love that. It's such a good guide for working with the animals. Dog tug sensor, that's another one where it's like, it's cool. I like, yeah, but I'm not, it's animals as tools again. So we're helping to make service animals more effective, where if they need to communicate something to a human, they can like pull a sensor, a tug sensor on a vest, and it will like speak human language out loud, like, oh, my owner needs help. Something like that. So I think it's cool. I think it's really cool the dog can learn to use it. Actually, I'm going to put it in C tier. But it's kind of the approach of like we have an animal who's being used as a tool and we're making them better at their job. But is it in a way that actually makes the dog achieve species competence or like feel better about what he's doing? I don't really know. So the cockroach mech suit. Okay, I hate this one. If there was like below F, I would put that under there. This is, well, first of all, okay, so this is a cockroach. Somebody created a robot where a cockroach controls it. So you can see a cockroach here. He's like strapped onto this device. It's got a little ping pong ball, and as he runs, it rotates the ping pong ball, which acts like, the ball in your mouse and controls the robot. Hate it. First of all, they should have called it the cockroach mech suit, and I don't think they did, but that's a good name because mech suits are awesome. But I also just think I don't know what the experience of a cockroach is. I don't know how much they understand what's going on around them or how much they can suffer. But if they can, then this is just a torture device for cockroaches, I think. You're just strapping them into this confusing device. There's lights that go off in front of them, so there's light constantly like blinking in their face. I think if cockroaches like have the ability to suffer, they might be suffering in this situation. I would worry about it, so F tier. Dolphin Chat, solid S tier. This is a project by Denise Herzing. She's amazing. I didn't know about her and her work before this class. One of the best things I learned in the class. But Dolphin Chat is a project she did with Georgia Tech, with Thad Starner, who I'm also a big fan of, to create a system for communicating with dolphins. So essentially, I could talk about this for 30 minutes, but just Google Denise Herzing and watch her talk about it because it's amazing. Essentially, the researchers created dolphin sounds, like they invented new sounds in dolphin sounding language, and those sounds refer to objects, and the idea is that they can use the chat system to make those sounds so they can show the dolphin what the object is, and then the dolphin can make the sound back to like request the object. So I like that idea of like just asking like what do animals want, and also using technology to help us understand that more. And then I also appreciate that the dolphins are all wild dolphins. So we're going out into the world and we're not saying like, oh, you have to play with this, you have to use this because you're in a tiny tank and I'm only going to feed you if you use it. We're just going out and we're finding dolphins that could just swim away from us if they want to, and we're kind of engaging them with something that we've made, and I think that's really cool. As a product designer, which I was a product designer before enrolling in this program, you always think like, if I make a good product, people will use it. And that's not the case because that's not how business and capitalism works. But you always have that vision of like, man, it seems like pure, right? It seems like pure and innocent. If I make a good product, people will want to use it. And I think that's like the dolphin chat. Like if it's a good product, then the dolphins will come use it. And they do like come and interact with it. So that to me is amazing and absolutely worthy of S tier. Enrichment planning checklist. I'm going to put that in B. It's cool. I like it. It's kind of similar to the wearability design framework. Love a framework, love a tool like this for people to use. Love the simplicity of it, but I'm not so much like a zoo person. Saki, monkey AV tunnel. I really like this. I'm tempted to put it in S tier. We're going to run out of face in S tier. I'm going to put it in A tier, actually. Let's do that. I really like this. This is a paper I think about a lot. So the researchers created, you can kind of see it in the thumbnail, this tunnel. This tunnel had audio capabilities and audio-visual capabilities. So like it could play video or it could play sounds. And then where the Saki monkeys like stood inside of it would trigger different either a sound or a video, and then it could like cycle through different sounds and different videos. What I love about this is they didn't use food rewards, so it's kind of like with the wild dolphins. It's like, oh, if we make a good product, they'll come use it, right? And it was kind of not clear like if they did. I think the monkeys only use the tunnel for like a couple minutes every day. But what I love about this paper is the researchers kind of say, well, we actually don't know if that's good or bad. And I agree. Like when I read that, like as a product designer, if someone only used my product for like a minute a day, I'd be like, oh, maybe, especially if it's a audio video product, I'd be like, oh, maybe it's not really reaching them. But maybe it is for Saki monkeys. Maybe that's like the pinnacle of achievement that they interacted with it as much as they did. So the authors really point out that like it's kind of unclear how to judge the success of this thing because we don't really know if they understood the controls. We don't really know if like the amount of time they spent with it was like good or bad. It's hard to tell like the purpose, like were they purposefully engaging with it, or were they just running through the tunnel because running through a tunnel is fun? And it raises all kinds of great questions about how we design for animals and how we know if our designs are successful or not. So I love that. VMS robotic milking machine, F tier, you probably could have guessed. It's for farming. I don't love that. I do wonder too, I mean, I'm obviously against factory farming. I don't like it. And I do wonder, like, maybe it is better for cows to get milked by a human because at least they're like engaging with another living being as opposed to walking into a robot. Like it just feels very Black Mirror to me. Like cows on a dairy farm don't have a lot to do all day, and then we're taking away like a social aspect. So like seeing a human interacting with a human is potentially a positive social experience for cows on a dairy farm, and now they can't even do that. So I have concerns. Robotic bees are cool. I'm just going to put it in C. They're fine. I mean, they're really cool, but it's, to me, it's not the kind of thing I want to create personally. We are probably going to be in a lot of trouble here soon with the decimation of honeybee populations. So replacing bees and having like non-sentient workers to do the same job is probably going to need to happen, and it's cool that someone is working on it. Crocodile dictionary. I mean, I kind of want to put it in S tier, I'll be honest. So researchers are working on understanding what the different sounds crocodiles make mean, because we don't know. And so that's another one where it's like, it's about communication, it's about understanding animals. Like if we go out into the world and we watch crocodiles, like we could do more to understand them if we understand like what their sounds mean. It's like a basic concept, but we haven't done it. We just haven't done it. And so people are doing it, and I love that. And I think there's some unique challenges in really trying to figure out what the sounds do mean and if that can be done and it can be explained in like a dictionary, which is a great technology or tool. I love that. So that's it. That's my tier list. We'll see. I should do this again when I'm done with the program, and then we can see it'll probably be completely different. So again, this is just my subjective, like this is not whether these technologies are good or bad. It's just my interest, my like the S tier like is sparkly when I think about it. When I imagine these technologies, like I get warm fuzzy feelings. F tier, like when I imagine these technologies, I feel distance. So it's not like about whether these things are good or bad or whether they really work or they don't, just like my sentiment, I guess, toward them. And since the purpose of this video is to reflect on the course, I thought that would be a good way to kind of see where I land and see what I think about and how I think about it. And I think it's pretty obvious. You see the S tier that I'm really interested in like these communication, like I'm interested in communication. I'm interested in understanding more about animals and helping people to understand animals. And I'm interested in creating technologies that animals enjoy using, like for their own purposes, not because we force them to, or they have to do it for a job, or they don't get food unless they do it. Like these are technologies that it's like if they want to participate, they can. And I think to be able to make a technology for an animal and the animal chooses to use it like again and again, and it's not just novelty effects, to me that is like really magical. And that is the kind of magic that I want to bring into the world. So thanks for listening.